the most famous shark within the Neogene and arguably the most famous extinct shark of all time would have been Carcharocles megalodon. Now, I still say Carcharocles. You might be Ototus fans, but Carcharocles, to me at least, makes the most taxonomic sense.
I would
And
not
I've what?
call that arguably the most famous fossil shark. I would call that
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. Probably it is the most famous one by a long shot. But yeah, you had this shark that is, most famous for its teeth. Chase, you have one that you could pull up. Yeah, so that it's pretty self-explanatory right there. So you have teeth that can get over 7 inches in length. It was a lamniform, so it was a mackerel shark. A lot of people use the term mackerel shark when you're like a shark tooth collector. They call like anything with like lateral cusplets and a central primary cusp. They call those mackerel shark teeth, which it isn't the most accurate because, I mean, again, if you look at a megalodon tooth that doesn't have those lateral cusplets, yeah, exactly. But it's still a mackerel shark, so that's something that I like to watch out for when you talk about like what a mackerel shark tooth is, because a megalodon was a mackerel shark. So this is the same order that has the most famous extant shark alive today, the great white. That's a mackerel shark. You'd have basking sharks, you'd have thresher sharks, um, the megamouth, that's another one. So
mako
yeah,
sharks.
so that what?
Mako sharks and blue sharks are both mackerel sharks, right?
Mako, and what was the other one you said?
Blue
What were
sharks.
the blue sharks? So, mako sharks would be a mackerel shark. Mako sharks belong within the family Lamnidae, which is the same family as the great white, and they're actually fairly closely related. We do see great white and mako teeth within the Neogene. So within the Neogene, you have a lot of extant stuff, things that we would recognize today. Within the Miocene, you would have the ancestral white sharks. So these would be like Carcharodon hastalis. And then towards the end of the Miocene, you start seeing the serrations evolve on the Pacific Carcharodon hastalis, which we call Carcharodon hubbleyi. And by the Pliocene, we would have your true great whites. The blue shark would be a Carchariniform, and that genus Paranaceae is um, a little bit of a mess phylogenetically, because if we look at a phylogenetic tree, the blue shark should be placed um, within the genus Carcharinus. It's nestled well within there, but I mean the blue shark looks, different, so we have it in its own genus, and I feel like it's a lot harder um, to change your extant genera than it is to change an extinct one, because people have been using it for so long and it's like well ingrained within biology and things like that that it's hard to change that stuff.
Not a mackerel shark.
Yeah, so it would be a ground shark, the blue shark. It would be a carchariniform. And particularly it's nestled within Carcharinidae. So like it would be in the same family as the bull shark, the silky shark, things like that. Yeah.
All I'm going to say is whether you're an Ototus head or a Carcharocles truther, hopefully we can all agree that Megalodon is extinct,
Yeah, yeah. And
please.
Megalodon became extinct within the Neogene. So what we think of as Megalodon, it was just a Neogene animal. I mean, it was part of a chronospecies at minimum from the earliest serrated teeth that evolved from Ototus obliquus. So like you'd have your quote unquote Carcharocles, Mugatsaharicus, and Axuaticus if you're like a splitter or not. Personally, I don't see those as being a true species, but more so a transitional morph. Because when we think of a species, or at least when I think of one, I think of something that's at least had some long-standing, um, I guess, like reign within a geological sense. So, like something that has existed in a fairly constant state throughout a decent, sizable amount of time. Whereas when we look at the serrated teeth, and also like talking about like Carcharodon hubli, it's a similar thing. Like, is that really a species, or is that just a morph into the long-standing species that we have, which would be the great white, Carcharodon carcharias? So when we think of a concept like punctuated equilibrium, we're looking at transitions that have been around for like a split second in the sense of like deep time. And then it would go into something that has like a long period of stasis where its phenotypes really aren't changing so much. And then, it evolves again. So when we look at Carcharocles, Axuaticus, things that are like partially serrated, but they're only around for like a part of the Euphrygian, can we really call that its own species? Or is that like kind of disingenuous? That's how I look at it. But yeah, so that the lineage that would have been the true like the true chronospecies going into Megalodon, that would be going basically from Carcharocles, Muga to Harkis up until Megalodon, in which case that would be a dead end lineage from there. There's no modern descendants from Megalodon. It is not a Carcharodon, like what was initially thought. But yeah, so with Megalodon, another transitional one that we argue about a lot within like the fossil community, especially the shark tooth collector community, is Carcharocles chubutensis. So this was a early Miocene shark that was basically the father to Megalodon. It was the part of that chronospecies right before Megalodon. But again, is that really going to be a true species or not? Because when we look at Carcharocles chubutensis, it's basically a megalodon tooth with small attached lateral cusplets. So they're attached to the main cusp. So it's a lot of times it's very small. It's these vestigial cusplets that are on their way out with megalodon. But the problem is we have early Miocene megalodon coexisting. We have early like juvenile megalodon teeth that have the presence of these lateral cusplets on their teeth. So does it really make sense to be like calling like for example a middle Miocene tooth tubutensis just because we see these slight ridges of cusplets or not? I personally call tubutensis that sort of like true tubutensis as that transitional morph within the Neogene between the Paleogene, Carcharocles, Angusidens, and then the true Megalodon. But it's not around for a long geologic time, and it's, in my opinion, just a transitional morph. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's to the point where we kind of have to recognize that it is a chrono species and not a morpho species. And so that's more or less, I mean, you kind of got to draw the line based on the geology as opposed to based on the paleontology, essentially. I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah.